Hello, and welcome back to Scholastically Natalie, where we talk about books, writing, reading, D&D, and sometimes other things. Today, we are continuing on with Into the Land of the Unicorns by Bruce Coville, and we are on Chapter 15, A Tale of Blood and Sorrow. The story of the fierce unicorn was repeated often, and the wide-eyed children who heard it and had no reason to disbelieve. Yet the power of the horn was such that it began to transform the man who had found it. The lies retreated from his heart, and with them the need to feel higher than his fellows. Slowly he learned to use the horn to heal, to help, to protect. Eventually he even tried to take back the story of how he had obtained it. But lies have a life of their own, and are harder to kill than either men or unicorns. People began to come from great distances to be touched by the horn, but since the horn was no longer part of a living being, the magic it held could not be replenished. Over the years its power was slowly drained, until at last it was empty of everything save beauty. Now, even before the horn had lost its magic, other men had desired one of their own, longing for the power and prestige that would come to whoever possessed such a miracle. With the horn drained, the dream of owning one became even more intense, for no healer who walked the earth at that time had the certain power of the horn. Even so, only the bravest went seeking unicorns, for while the horn had lost its power, the lie told by its finder had grown in strength. Men now believed the story of the fierce and deadly unicorns as if they had experienced it firsthand. "We can be fierce, if need be," said Lightfoot proudly. "It is something you learned in the terrible years that followed," replied Grimwold. He paused, then turning to Kara, said, "It started with a girl about your age. She was the child of a great hunter, a man both ferocious and determined. His wife had died giving birth to the girl, and thereafter he had lived alone in the forest with only his child for company. He called her Beloved, for he had given all his heart to her. Beloved fell ill. On the first day of her sickness the hunter tended her himself. But on the second day she was much worse, so he went to the village and brought the healer back to their forest home. But the healer could do nothing. Alas, that we no longer have a unicorn's horn," he muttered as he left the hut. The father's quick ears heard these words. With each passing day, Beloved's condition grew worse. On the third day after the healer's failure, the hunter said to himself, "I shall find me a unicorn. I care not for its ferocity. I care not for my own life, should Beloved die. I will hunt, and I will find, and I will tear the horn from its head." Kara could feel Lightfoot shudder. Horrible as the story was, she wondered what it would be like to have a father who loved her like that. "Such was the hunter's love for his daughter," continued Grimwold, "that he never questioned whether his vow was good or evil, wise or foolish. The child alone was in his mind and his heart as he went a-hunting. His quest carried him far and wide, but each night he returned to the cottage to care for Beloved and tend her needs. He was a solitary man, and even had he known someone who could come and help with the child, he would not have known how to ask. Alas, each night when he returned to the cottage, the child was worse than when he had left her. The day drew on. She begged him to stay by her side until she died, as she was sure now that she must do. But the hunter had become obsessed with the quest for the horn. Wild-eyed, he refused his daughter's pleas, and instead strapped her to his back and carried her with him on his hunt. It was not hard, for her illness had wasted her, and she weighed but little. Nor did she complain, for she loved her father and longed to be with him. Kara sighed, thinking what that must have been like. Grimwold glanced at her, but made no comment. In the forest, he continued, the hunter left Beloved in a place he deemed safe. A place his hunter's skills told him was not visited by great cats or other fierce beasts. Then he began circling out, searching for a unicorn, haunted by the fear that he would come back and find his daughter dead from her illness. Late that afternoon, a breeze caught and carried a Beloved scent to a unicorn named Whiteling, who was wading in a stream some miles away. The smell of her pain and need, of her approaching death, touched his heart. He began seeking the child even as her father was returning from his hunt. Whiteling reached the clearing first. He did not enter at once, for unicorns were wary around humans. But something about the child drew him in. Her innocence, perhaps, or her pain, or simply the knowledge that he could heal her. Silently, on feet that could cross a field of flowers without crushing a petal, he began to walk toward the girl. She lay equally silent, eyes closed, breathing shallow. Lowering his horn, Whiteling pointed it at Beloved's breast, even as her father drew near the clearing. The hunter's heart filled with terror when he saw the very beast he had been seeking. The beast he had been taught from boyhood was ferocious beyond all others, heading for his daughter. He reached into his quiver, drew forth an arrow, knocked it to his bow. Kara drew a sharp breath. She could feel Lightfoot grow tense beside her. The unicorn bent to heal the child. The father loosed his arrow. It flew straight and true, piercing Whiteling's heart at the very moment that his horn pierced the heart of the ailing girl. He screamed and reared, trumpeting his pain. Bellowing with rage, the hunter raced into the clearing. Whiteling turned on him, and the two began to fight. The battle was brief, but bloody. When it was done, both man and beast lay dead on the forest floor. The only living thing in the clearing was Beloved, who had watched the tragedy through wide and terrified eyes. Whiteling had cured her illness, yet her heart was filled with an icy pain. Here is the reason. When the arrow struck Whiteling, he had snapped his head so fast that the tip of his horn caught beneath Beloved's breastbone and broke off there. That piece of horn was now lodged in her heart, which was doomed to be forever wounded, forever healing, both in the same instant. Kara put her hand to her chest, trying to imagine the feeling. Though it took 7 days, Beloved buried her father in that clearing, digging his grave with the broken horn that she had hacked from Whiteling's head with her father's knife. When she was done, she stood atop her father's grave. Holding the alicorn with both hands, afire with pain, she swore that she and her children's children, and all the generations that followed would be foes of all unicorns, and hunt them and kill them until the last days and the ends of the earth. Only then did she return to the cottage that she had shared with her father. Eventually she found another hunter, and married him, and gave birth to 7 sons. Each son was trained in the ways of the wood and the trail and the hunt. Each sought unicorns to slay, which they did by acting out their mother's story and placing a young woman in the woods. The hunters believed this lured the unicorns because they wanted to savage the innocent girl. But the real reason was even stranger. In the moment of Whiteling's death, the unicorns had been taken by a kind of madness. He was their first of their kind to be killed, and each unicorn had felt the moment when his horn had been broken. Each had seen for an instant through his eyes. And what they had seen was a young girl, lost in pain and fear. These two things, the girl and the broken horn, were fused in their minds, and they sought over and over again to find the missing bit of horn, and to bring peace to young maidens, usually to the unicorn's own grief and sorrow. The sons of Beloved grew old and died, but Beloved herself did not, for the piece of horn lodged in her heart kept her alive, ever wounded, ever healing. Grandsons she had, and great-grandsons after that, and, as is true for many families in your world, they came to be known by what they did. They came to be called the Hunters. Of course, many are known as Hunters who did not come from this clan, and there are many born to the clan who do not know its true past. But from each generation, Beloved herself selects a handful to carry on the family quest to seek and to slay unicorns. Grimwold paused and shook himself as if coming out of a trance. Looking directly at Kara, he said, "After a time the unicorns opened the first door to Luster. They fled here, to have a world of their own, where they would be safe from the hunters and the curse of Beloved. But that is another story, and a long one at that. What you need to know is that for centuries the hunters sought to enter this world, in order to carry on their quest for revenge. Then something happened, and for a long time we did not hear anything of them. We even dared hope that the line had finally died out or given up. We were wrong. I am sure that the man chasing you is one of the clan. His goal is to gain the amulet so that he can open a door to luster to others of his kind. Perhaps the hunter and the delvers are in league. Even if they are not, should the delvers succeed in opening a door, the hunters will be ready. The slaughter will begin again. Kara felt a cold terror in her heart, partly because of what Grimold had just said, but even more because she finally knew the identity of the man who had chased her grandmother and her into St. Christopher's. She knew, but she dare not tell. And that is the end of chapter 15. Thank you so much for listening, and there will be more chapters to come. We are, I'd say, a good 3/4 of the way through, maybe even more than that. So soon we will come to the exciting climax. And with that, Scholastically Natalie is out.